Good afternoon. Officials in San Juan County are about to hold a press conference to release new details about the shooting yesterday at Aztec High School that left 2 students dead along with the gunman. Now, the names of those 2 students were released late last night, but at this point, we have not received any more information about how this shooting played out or about the gunman in that case. This all happened about 8 o'clock yesterday morning, just as first period was getting underway at Aztec High. Obviously, still a lot of questions about what happened, the motive in this case, the relationship of the victims and the gunman, if there was any, if this was a random crime, or if there is more to this. Now, the FBI had moved into the area yesterday. State police have moved in, also San Juan County Sheriff's Office, to work together on this investigation to figure out exactly what happened. School out of session today, obviously, as this community works to heal from what happened yesterday. Now, the governor, the state police chief, and other officials are all at today's press conference where they're expected to release some more information. Let's head there live.
Folks from Aztec, Farmington, and throughout San Juan had a candlelight vigil. It was amazing to see the unity of the community, from little kiddos to the grown-ups, teachers, pastors, and to see the unification of the community. Healing is starting, it's beginning. I know it's going to be a long time, but there are many services that are available, many resources that are available, and they're listed on pulltogether.org. Please don't feel that you cannot reach out and ask for help. Don't feel embarrassed or ashamed. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. We all struggle through these difficult times and need someone to talk to. We also want to keep the family in our prayers. Our deepest condolences go out to the family of Casey and Paco. But they have asked that they be given space by the media. They are struggling to accept what has happened. And so we're asking you, if you will please not continuously attempt to contact them, to talk to them. They're barely processing this for themselves and the children within their own families. And that comes from the family, and I would ask that you please respect that. Yesterday we said that there would be more information and more answers today. We have those, and I will turn it over to law enforcement. But first I want to say how proud I am. I am proud of this community. I am proud of the Aztec Police Department and how quickly they reacted. I stated yesterday, within less than a minute, to respond to a school, and were able to act in a way to prevent further harm to other children or teachers or staff. I am so proud of the people inside the school, and they were truly heroes, many of them, on how they kept the kids safe once lockdown took place, once they understood what was happening. I will then turn it over to Sheriff Christensen, who can tell you more about the acts of bravery, and also to Chief Caceres, who can also, both of them together, share with you some of the facts that were learned yesterday throughout the day as they continuously worked through the daytime and nighttime in gathering information about what took place at Aztec High School. Sheriff Christensen?
Do I get to use the stool?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, again, this is a sad day, as yesterday was, but today hopefully we'll give you some information that you can work with and that'll solve some of the issues. I'm going to talk a little bit about the suspect and some of his intentions, and I'm only going to name this guy one time. The PIOs will give you all the information about him, but I want to make sure that you know that this is an act of cowardice. But his name is William Atchison. He's 21 years old, and it was a single coward shooter. this was a planned event. The gun he used was a Glock pistol that he purchased locally and legally. He lived in Aztec with his parents. He worked at a local gas station, and he planned this thing. I want to show you some of the things that we found on his person. He had a thumb drive that had some information on it. I'm going to show you a couple of things that he had on there, but the rest of it is still under investigation, has been turned over to the FBI for their computer forensics. While we're trying to get that up for you, I would tell you that he disguised himself as a student and was able to enter the school as the buses were letting people in, and created this level of secrecy as he entered the building. This person is not only a coward, he's evil. And you know, in my mind, there's so many things wrong with this, and I think it's just a shame that he wasn't on our radar. I don't think he had as much as a traffic ticket or anything else here locally. Be able to get that up?
Yeah, I need to get up there.
Okay, come up here. It's important that what I show you, so you'll understand how focused he was and how deranged he was as far as his intent, that evil.
So we had to turn the monitors off and screwed it up.
Okay. Here's a photo of him. I'll leave that up there for a minute. Yes, sir. Here's a photo. I'll leave that up for a minute so you can get a shot of that. And here in a minute, I want to show you what he had written. And I'm going to read the top part. He wrote this at 6:51 a.m. yesterday morning. If things go according to plan, today would be when I die. I wait until the school buses are detected, then head out on foot disguised as a student. I go somewhere and gear up, then hold a class hostage and go apeshit, then blow my brains out. I'm not going to read the rest. I'm going to let you do that. This is only a small portion of what shows his intent. Like I said, the rest is still under investigation and will be for some time. A little over 24 hours ago, we started this investigation, and we've conducted search warrants at his home, at computers, in different places. Men and women of the state police, the FBI, and the San Juan County Sheriff's Office, and other agencies that contributed have been working their tails off to get this thing done. We wanted to be able to get this out to you as quickly as we could. I'm going to give you one of the search warrants. We found this in his home, in his trash can, in his room, and it's a note. It says, number 1, 620, work. And I can't.
Back up.
Oh, it's pack up. And then 7 to 7:30 is prep. 7:30 to 8 walk. And 8 die. The reason we put this up there, I just wanted to show you the intent of this and how I don't think that that we know so far that anyone else knew of his intentions. So, but we still have a lot of investigating to do. This is just a hair over 24 hours later, and we've uncovered quite a bit about this young man. I want to talk a little bit about the victims, not the victims so much as because you'll get plenty of time to do that, but the heroes, Aztec schools, they did an amazing job of locking down the rooms and following the training of an active shooter. Their swift action saved a whole bunch of lives and a lot of devastation. One person in particular, her name is Kathleen Potter. She's a 74-year-old substitute teacher. She had 16 kids in the classroom with her. When she heard the shooting going on, she didn't have a key to lock, because she's a substitute, she didn't have a key to lock the door, so she took all the kids and put them into an office area in a supply room or storage, and they barricaded the door with a couch. That person, the shooter, came into that room when was hollering, and I know you're in there, and fired multiple rounds through the walls, hitting no one. We're blessed. The good Lord was watching. We had angels over those kids and that teacher. Thomas Hill, the custodian, he heard the shots, spotted the shooter, and followed him through the screaming at the shooter as he pursued him, yelling at teachers to lock down. We have an active shooter. He continued to yell and follow and warn others. These people are true heroes that they're right here in our community. That in every one of these things, there's someone steps up and does the right thing. And these folks did it. These are just a couple of them. And then we talk about the Chief Hill and his crew getting there within a minute. Folks, that's fantastic. And it was because of that quick response that deterred him from shooting anybody else. He was determined to create as much carnage as he possibly could. A couple of people, the first ones there was Lieutenant Joe Gonzalez and Captain Troy Morris, along with the chief and the school resource officer, were the first ones there, and they did an outstanding job of deterring this. I want to thank them and the community. And one thing that we always get up here and talk about what a great job and how well we get along, and that's fine. But I want to tell you what the community has done. There's so much food and outpouring from the community, owners, people offering everything in the world, but the command post and here at the office and all over was, we have so much food we're going to have to give it away. And they brought coffee, donuts, sandwiches, barbecue, whatever, to help all the people here, and I appreciate that from our community. We're very blessed to have the community we have, and folks, I just want to say thank you very much. And I'm going to turn it over to the Chief of the State Police, Pete Cassettis.
Thank you, Sheriff. I'll walk through a little bit about what we know about the action of the suspect. We know that he entered that school, as the Sheriff said, mingled with the students at about 8:04. When he did that, he had a backpack with him. We know he had one pistol on him, the 9mm Glock, and multiple magazines with him. He went to a second-floor bathroom area where he was preparing to confront the students. Luckily, they were in class. There wasn't a lot of students milling around the hallway. The male subject, the first victim, Paco, had actually excused himself to go to the restroom. And that's where when he opened the door and entered that restroom, he encountered the suspect. He had absolutely no chance to survive that encounter. The suspect immediately started firing at him, and he never exited that restroom. The suspect did. He exited into the hallway where he encountered the second victim, female. He immediately shot her dead, right where she was at. From there, as the sheriff had said, shots had been heard, and the staff sprung to action. He walked up and down the hallway, firing randomly. Don't know how many rounds right now, multiple rounds. Some of you have seen some video of some rounds that has exited a glass area of a walkway. That was him shooting out of the glass, shooting into the classrooms, As was indicated earlier, he did enter that computer lab where the teacher had barricaded those kids in the back. He knew they were back there. He fired rounds towards them. Luckily, they were all sheltered down in place, fired over their heads, we believe. He exits, walks down the hallway. By all indications, we believe he takes his own life using that very gun. We're still working through the scene. There is a lot of, as you can imagine, shell casings. I mentioned the multiple magazines. He did reload multiple times. I don't know how many. After he had, we believe, shot himself, during the time, I suppose, he was making up his mind in his own life, Aztec Police Department was there. Again, to gain access and entry into the school, they actually shot out a window and made entry into the school. We believe that happened just before he ended his own life. Next up is Terry Wade, the FBI SAC, who's going to talk about a little bit of interaction that his federal agency had with the suspect. Terry?
Good morning. On behalf of the men and women of the FBI, I want to offer our heartfelt condolences to the families of Francisco and Casey. We can't begin to understand their grief and their sense of loss. Our hearts are with them, as well as everyone in the Aztec community who is mourning this terrible tragedy. The FBI is committed to assisting the New Mexico State Police, the San Juan County Sheriff's Office, and the Aztec Police Department as we continue this investigation. Right now, we're conducting interviews as we try to understand what led up to yesterday's attack. Additionally, we have victim specialists who are here to help those who are grieving. While this is still an ongoing investigation and we're somewhat limited on what we can talk about, we can share with you that we did have contact with the subject in March of 2016. The FBI opened an assessment after we received a tip about comments that he made on an online gaming forum, which were brought to our attention through a tip, as I said. The FBI undertook extensive database reviews to find information on him at that time. We then coordinated with local law enforcement and interviewed him along with some of his family. The assessment was subsequently closed after it was determined that no crime had been committed and there was no lawful justification to undertake further investigative steps. As frustrating as this is, it is important to note that absent suspicion of a crime or the necessary legal requirements, the FBI cannot initiate or maintain an investigation. Nonetheless, I can assure you and everyone here that this tragedy furthers our resolve to do everything in our power to protect the community. Again, we offer the FBI's most sincere condolences to Casey and Francisco. At this time, we'll open it up to any questions.
Can you tell us a little bit, sir, about his relationship, connection to the school? Did he attend the school? Did he have friends there?
He was a former student there. He didn't graduate there. He started in Berlin, and his family moved to Aztec, and he had been a student at that school in the past.
And then can you elaborate a little bit more about the tip you got that led you guys to investigate him? A gaming website. I know you can't say a lot, but what can you say about that?
There are a lot of different gaming websites out there, different active shooter type of gaming websites, a lot of different things out there. Occasionally we'll get tips from other people that get on those gaming websites where people have put some sort of disturbing type of message. That's what occurred in this one. It was not a specific threat. It wasn't about Aztec in particular. We had to do some research to find out who made the post in the first place. So those were the initial investigative steps. They ended up tying back to him, and that's what led us to interview him.
Terry, can you say what the message was? Just some clarity on that.
Generally speaking, it was, if you're going to conduct a mass shooting, does anybody know about cheap assault rifles? Something along those lines. It was very generic, not a specific threat, but disturbing enough that we wanted to find out who put it up there and follow through. Like I say, we did a lot of database checks and found no derogatory information on him, no ties to other organizations or anything like that. We still have no information that he had any ties to any type of organizations. The investigation on that's ongoing, but we don't have any indication of that. We did conduct an interview with him at his home, and we talked to him extensively. He was cooperative, At that time, he didn't have any guns. He showed us an airsoft gun that he had. We talked to him extensively. He told us that he enjoyed trolling on the internet like that to get people to go back and forth on those type of statements. And the agent specifically asked him if he had any plans about conducting an attack and expressed to him the seriousness that we take these type of things. He assured us that he had no such plans, that he did this, as I said, and he liked to troll and do things like that. There was corroboration through that through another family member, and at that time he had no weapons and no derogatory information, and there was, as I say, no lawful purpose for us to continue to look at him.
When you have a tip like this, is there any coordination with you and local law enforcement to let them know that someone is on your radar?
We did. We initially shared the initial information with the Aztec Police Department and then followed up to let them know that we didn't have anything further on this individual.
Can let me add something to that? During the interviews, one of the family members said he's known for making outlandish statements, and that was one of the things he liked to do was just to see how riled up you could get people by making those kind of outlandish statements.
It's clear from what you showed us that he was unhappy for some reason, but can you tell us anything more about why he was unhappy? Why exactly he was so bothered and troubled?
No. Don't know. We don't know.
Don't know.
He's the only one that knows, and he's got a bullet in his head, so don't know.
Have you guys talked to his family at all? I just basically live with his parents. What have they said?
We have had contact with them, but that's part of the ongoing investigation. It'd be better not to get into that right now.
Are you guys looking through his social media in the prior weeks and months to see if anything was posted, anything that could have possibly alerted you guys or somebody that you may have been planning this?
Absolutely.
Have you found anything?
No.
I will tell you this to expand. It was very evident that he wanted us, law enforcement, to find the thumb drive. It was on his body. So there is a lot more that we're going to have to do as far as an investigation and data mining and looking at that, and that's why it was turned over to the FBI. They have that expertise. It's going to take some time, and I'm sure that when that's done, it's going to be a lot more information. We just probably barely scratched the surface of that. So some of the questions you're having about maybe what was speaking to his mind frame at the time may come up then, but for now, we don't know.
Is there any reason to believe he knew these two victims, or they just happened to be in front of his path at that moment?
I think they just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
We do not believe we were targeted.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
When the FBI was at, when you were at his house, what was the family? You obviously spoke with his parents, I'm assuming.
Well, I don't want to get too deep into that as this is ongoing, but he was cooperative.
And the parents were cooperative?
The family was cooperative with us.
And I'll give you my opinion regarding Paco. It was an unfortunate circumstance that he entered that bathroom, but by doing so, he saved lives, because I believe the suspect would have armed himself with that weapon and walked right into a classroom, which would have been worse. And that in itself, that kid's a hero.
Can you give us a scenario of how this person obtained access to the school, what he did, how long he was there before this started?
I can tell you that he had planned this out. He knew what he was doing. We believe, as the sheriff had said, that he got to the school sometime before the buses had showed up, and he was able to mingle with the students, which, again, allowed him to walk in. He looks quite young in that picture that you saw. So he was able to walk into the school undetected. And from there, I already spelled out what exactly happened. But from what the sheriff had said with the prior writings, and of course the sticky notes pretty telling, he had planned this out for some time. How long and when he started the planning, I don't know. And hopefully in that thumb drive, where we believe he has information, he'll line that out for us.
Just for some of us not familiar with the high school, this is a high school that students don't have identification, or how does that work?
I don't know. Maybe the chief can answer that, but I can tell you, even if you're talking hundreds of kids assembling for class, it's very difficult to catch that in any school. So,
From your experience as investigators, why do people like this want you to find a thumb drive or want you to know why they did what they did or something like that?
I think we see a lot of these folks that talk about notoriety. They know some of these other shooters who have gotten a lot of attention. That's why, as the sheriff talked about, we're not going to glorify his name. We're not going to put up pictures that he wanted out. But to speak to why, we'll never know.
You searched his home and found any other documentation or images or anything else that might have described his intentions?
Not that we can talk about right now.
Sheriff, can we talk about the training that you guys have done? I talked yesterday with one of the county commissioners about there's so much training that happens at the high school. It's pretty remarkable that the shooter shot indiscriminately for a while and nobody else was injured. Did the training have anything to come into play there?
Absolutely. I think between the police departments and the schools, they go through active shooter training all the time. They train for disasters, fire drills, things like this. Teachers instinctively did exactly what they were trained to do, and as a result, they saved lives and all the injuries. It was astonishing that 2 people lost their lives, but there were no other injuries to the students, and that was a miracle.
Chief, can I ask you this question? Does the school have a resource officer, or because were there so?
The resource officer was with us, Heather Nibbs. There were the 4 of us that went there, and she was one of them that went there with us. She was not at the school at that time.
Maybe one more.
Any more questions? We're about to end it.
Just one for you, Chief. Can you talk about, just walk us through what you encountered, what you saw, what you experienced?
Before he does that, I don't think we can allow that because we're still interviewing the witnesses. And if the chief goes into too much detail because he himself is a witness, we don't want to make sure and taint those interviews. I'm sure there'll be a proper time and place, but that's a great question, but it's a little too early for us. These detectives behind you are working night and day. There's so many, can you imagine, so many kids to interview, so much social media was put out there. We got to run all that down. Even though the individual is dead, we still want to do what we need to do as far as law enforcement to answer all the questions for you in the community. So.
Chief, can you talk a little about the victims? Anything you can tell us about them?
I can tell you, I met with the families. I know your microphones are important. I met with all of the families. And Casey, I met with Grandma and Grandpa, maternal grandmother and grandfather at the vigil, and they spoke. I then met with them during the vigil, and I was informed by the grandfather how grandmother was buying clothes for her to travel to Florida because she was going to be performing as one of the national cheerleaders in the Orange Bowl. So they were buying clothing and, you know, all the things that someone needs to be able to be there and perform. Mom and Dad obviously are extremely distraught. They really do want some space to process what's going on. Also, I met with Paco's dad and Paco's brother and a couple of uncles and aunt, grandmother and stepmother. They talk about what a great kid he was with computers and how it was always a competition and how fast you can type on that computer, and he was beating every kid in his computer class as well as his teacher. I mean, he was that good with computers. They talk about just what good kids they were, and that they, Paco had a job, Casey had a job, they both went to school as well, had extracurricular activities such as cheerleading. They seem to be just absolutely broken. I cannot imagine anyone being told that when you send your child to a school that they die in that school because some evil human being took their lives. The family is pulling together. I will tell you that through Crime Victim Reparation Commission, We have relieved the family of any costs for any burial. There are funds available when you are victims of such a horrific crime to be able to take care of those costs for them so that they can, move on with just grasping what's happened as well as beginning the healing process. I don't think anyone ever gets over this. It just changes how you live. And so I ask you all to keep the family in your prayers and your thoughts. And remember what it's like to put a microphone in their face when they just aren't ready to talk about it. They're not ready to talk to each other just yet. There's a lot of crying going on. And it's hard for them to just put their thoughts together, much less. And sometimes they're just not prepared to be on television. So I appreciate all your cooperation, and I thank you for respecting that.
Governor, the shooter mentioned in his note hating the state of New Mexico. Do you have any response to that?
I've always said there are evil people in the world. And just because they hated New Mexico, I'm sorry, that's not anything we can control. But the fact that you carry a gun into a school with multiple magazines and start shooting at innocent people, that to me is pure evil.
Do we have any indication? I would imagine the school's going to be closed for several days. Do we have a basic timeline on that?
I think it's closed up through the end of the weekend, of course. Today and what's today? Friday. I'm sorry. And I have the superintendent back there from Aztec School District. Can you let us know what your thoughts are on that?
At this point, Governor, we closed all schools, and then we are going to be late today to assess opening the rest of all of the schools. As we said, at Aztec High School, we're starting to wait on Aztec High School until it's safe and we're back to prepare to give a timeline on it.
Sure.
We're waiting to see about the rest of the schools make a decision later.
They're waiting for it this time to assess. Today, they're going to assess all of the schools and which ones they will be opening. Aztec High School will remain closed until it is safe, and they have made all the repairs that are necessary, and of course that the crime scene has been cleared.
Now we're going to communicate that on social media and work with the schools. They're doing the same. They'll shoot, and they'll do that on ours as well.
And just so we're clear, was the weapon purchased before the FBI interview or after the FBI interview?
It was purchased last month.
Let me add one more thing, and I want to make sure that when we talk about the victims, the families of the two victims, that listen, our hearts and prayers are with them. Just couldn't imagine anything worse. But I want to tell you, we talked about heroes earlier. There were some heroes charging into that building wearing uniforms that their kids went to that school. And they didn't know whether or not that their kids were going to be the victims. They knew there was victims, but they still did their job, and when they got that job completed, then they asked, was it my daughter? Was it my son? That's important. In something, a tragedy like this hits everyone. Everyone knows. I got calls yesterday, and I was able to look at one of the voicemails I had. One of the family members called me, and I couldn't hardly hear him because he was sobbing so hard. I've been a good friend for 30 years or more. It's incredible how it touches everyone in this community. So, as the governor said, please have some heart when you're talking to the families and stuff, and realize how hard that is on those folks. Folks, thank you. I think that's it.
Terry, one more question for you. Do you know, did he buy that gun himself, or did somebody else purchase it?
We had that. It's
It's a legal
yes.
age.
It was him. He purchased it in his own name.
Was it purchased legally?
Yes.
Thank you.
Law enforcement releasing a lot of detail about yesterday's deadly shooting at Aztec High School. We not only learned a lot more about the two victims, which we learned were random. They were not targeted. Casey Jordan, Paco Fernandez. Fernandez targeted as he walked into a bathroom. Casey then shot as the shooter walked out of the bathroom. A lot more victims there could have been without the heroes, they say yesterday, who stepped in. The gunman, they say, opened fire in a classroom after kids, a substitute teacher, 73-year-old substitute teacher, got them barricaded in a closet. The gunman opened fire in that classroom, did not hit anybody. They also confirmed that gunman did take his own life as deputies were entering the school yesterday. Obviously, we continue to learn a lot more about the victims, about what happened, about the heroes yesterday, and about that gunman, a 21-year-old who attended the school in the past but was not a current student, and also spent time, we're told, grew up in Belen. We'll work to learn more. We'll, of course, have much more for you coming up in just a few minutes at noon.